So with Mishnah begins, Hamor Yosef b'mardat bizman shehi keshura bo. So you have a saddle cloth. I actually have some pictures for you here tonight. Here you go. Here's a mardat. As you can see, is the saddle cloth. It serves two functions. It keeps the animal warm, and it also stabilizes the saddle, which is called an ukaf, which would be on top of it. So an animal is allowed to walk outside with the saddle cloth as long as it is tied to it. And that's because it's not just good for us, it's good for the animal. It keeps it nice and warm. So that's all fine. Zecharim yotzin levuvin. A male rams can go out levuvim. The translation is extremely helpful here, levuvim. That means a cover on its genitals so that it cannot mate, right? The farmer does not want it to be doing that. Rechelot, female, use the yotzot shechuzot, kibulot, uchbunot. Shechuzot means with their tail tied up so that the males will be able to mate. Kibulot is with their tails tied down so that they cannot mate, right? And the farmer wants to control all this. Uchbunot means when it's covered entirely to protect its wool. You want to make sure the wool doesn't get damaged and doesn't get dirty so that it'll be ready for the time of the sheep shearing. Okay, in all these cases, the animal can go out like that because it's like a cover. It's clothing for the animal. It's keeping it warm. It's doing something positive. She-goats can have their udders bound. We'll see there's two reasons why you would bind the udders of the animal. We'll see that in just a minute. But Rabbi Yosef, the rest Tanakama, Rabbi Yosef, minority opinion is more mahmir. They're all no good except for the ewe that you put a cover over it to protect the wool. That's nice protection and gives it good warmth. And so that's okay. The rest no good. Rabbi Yehuda is also machmir. Omer izim yoseot sirurot liyabesh avalo lehaleb. According to Tanakama, it sounds like they can always go out with their udders tied. But Rabbi Yehuda says no. It depends. If it's so that the milk will dry out, then they can go out that way. But if you tie them up to save the milk so it doesn't spill on the ground, then it's not good. The difference is if you were trying for all the milk to dry up, then they're tied tightly, and so since they're tied tightly, it's permanent, and so they can go out. But if you want to save the milk so it doesn't spill, then it's loosely bound. But you're binding it with something, with a rope or something. Then it'll fall off, and then that's no good. All right, that is the Mishnah. And now the Gemara, Shemuel, was a very prominent figure, I have to say, throughout this Perek. You had a lot to teach about it. If you want the animal to go out, here's another picture of the saddle cloth. That if you want the animal to go out with the saddle cloth on Shabbat, it has to be there already tied. It has a tie under its belly. It has to be tied from before Shabbat. Different reasons, perhaps because by tying it before Shabbat, you're showing that it's good for the animal. It's cold out. You wanted to keep it warm, and you're not intending that you're going to start riding it or packing things on top of it. Amar Rav Nachman matnitin namedaika dekatani en hamor yotze b'mardat bizman shena keshura lo. Later, the next Mishnah that we'll see in 2 dapim from now says the opposite case. A complementary case. It says a chamor cannot go out with the saddle cloth when it is not tied, and from that we can learn that you can go out when it's not tied, when it is tied. So we have this doubling. Hechi dameh ile. So what is the case? If it's not tied down at all, of course it can't go out with a saddle cloth that's not tied. It's going to fall off. He's going to go and pick it up. He's going to carry it. So when it says it can't go out if it's not tied, it has to mean that unless it's not tied but from before Shabbat. So we can learn from that in the Resha, when it says it can go out when it is tied, Keshura me'erev Shabbat shemat mina. Okay, and so we learned that it has to, what Shmuel said, we can derive from the Mishnah itself. In truth, we could learn almost the same derivation from the Resha, that it can go out if it's tied. Well, isn't it obvious that it couldn't go out if it's not tied? But the proof from the second part of the Mishnah is stronger. But we have another baraita that teaches us the very same law. There you go, an explicit baraita that says exactly that. Shmuel derived it from the Mishnah, but okay, it has to be tied from before Shabbat. But it adds now something else. Ukaf is the saddle that goes on top of this. It cannot walk outside with a saddle. I mean, what's the point of a saddle? You're gonna load it, you're gonna ride on it. And so even if you tie it before Shabbat, saddles is too much. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer, af be'ukaf bizman shekishura lo erev Shabbat. But Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel is a da'at yachid, and he is mekel. He says, no, it's okay, as long as even the saddle, I guess it provides some warmth, even if only less than the first one. You're allowed, as long as you don't tie it on very well, which means tying it on. We have pictures of this too. No, not quite. Oh yeah, here's the sheep that you bind up to save its wool. Here, as long as you only tie it under the belly, you cannot tie it from the front or from the back. The idea here is that if it's carrying a load and it goes uphill, you need this rope so that it won't fall backwards. If it's going down, walking downhill, you need this rope so it won't fall forwards. But you can't. That's too much bound, and so you can't put the saddle on that way. But if it's just one tie around the belly, and then Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says it's okay. Okay. Now, ba'amineh Rab Asi bar Natan Rabbi Chia bar Rab Asher. These two Amoraim are asking each other. One asks the other. Maliten mardat al gabe chamor b'Shabbat. Slightly different case. The animal's bare, and now I want to put a saddle cloth on it on Shabbat. Not to go outside in the Shut Rabim, but I guess it's cold, and I want to put it on Shabbat. And he said, Mutar, you can put it on Shabbat. We said, well, what's the difference between this and a saddle, which he's assuming now you could not put on? Ishtik. Rav Chia he didn't give an answer. I don't know, either he couldn't think of why it should be different, or he didn't want to reveal his opinion. But then Rav Asi is persistent and continues asking. He says, listen, we learned ukaf itibe. He asked him a question from a baraita. Ukaf she'al gabe hamor lo yeteltelena biyado ela molicha o mevi'aha bechaser v'nofel me'elav. If the animal had a saddle on it and you want to get it off, you cannot remove it directly, but you can let it walk around, shake it a bit, and it'll fall off by itself. In other words, you can't touch it. If you're not even allowed to take it off, which seems like it will be less work, all the more so you couldn't put it on, which would involve a lot of work going under, tying and things. And so he proves from a baraita that in ukaf, putting on a saddle is not allowed. So he's like, why should that be any different? Wouldn't putting on a saddle cloth be just as much work? And so that should also be not allowed. So he's pressing him and he's not answering the question. And then the Rabbi Zera comes and says, hey, leave him alone. He's just following the opinion of his master, right? And so that's why he said what he said. He has a good source to rely on. That same sage said in the name of Rav, that's his teacher, he says you are allowed to place a feed bag just like this onto an animal on Shabbat, And so all the more so that is only mahatam de mishum ta'anug shireh. That's only for the benefit of enjoyment of the animal. It doesn't really need it. It could bend down and eat, but it's an extra added benefit for the animal, and you're allowed to put that on. So hachad mishum sa'al lo kol sheken. In our case, where you're putting on a saddle bag, a saddle cloth, which is preventing it from suffering from the cold, all the more so that would be allowed. Right? So we're taking into account in all these cases the feelings of the animal that we want to avoid Sa'ar Ba'alei Chaim, and so we are allowed to do things on Shabbat to relieve the animal of pain, and in this case you can even do something to give it some enjoyment, and that is the opinion of Rav, and this Rabbi Chia was simply following his teacher, and that's why he said that all these various things are allowed. In Mekel, Shemuel Amar Mardat Mutar Teraskal Asur. Shemuel disagrees with Rav. He's more machmir. He says you can put on a saddle cloth. That's okay. It's for warmth. But this feed bag, that's no good. That doesn't need it. It's not necessary. So therefore, not allowed. Azal Rabbi Chia Bar Yosef Amaraha Lishma'ateh Derav Kameh Shmuel. So you always have these students that are asking all the rabbis their tshuva shopping, and so that this student goes and says what Rav said to Shemuel. Rav said you are allowed to put on the feed bag. He tells that to Shemuel, and Shemuel has a quite surprising answer, and he says Amar li hachi Amar Abba. He calls him Abba. That was Rav's official name. We call him Rav for short, but his name was Rav Abba. He says if that's what he said, that you're allowed to connect a feed bag, and he doesn't know anything about the laws of Shabbat. That's quite a stinging remark to a colleague who was himself one of the greatest sages. But okay, I mean in general we say the halacha follows Shemuel in monetary matters, and follows Rav in Isurim, in ritual matters. So I think this would fall into ritual matters, and halacha should be like Rav. So he's like later recognized as the expert in this, not Shemuel.
It's interesting that he uses his name and not the honorific, as he's going to say he doesn't know anything.
Right. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Right. Good point. Okay. Ski selek Rabbi Zera Ashkeche. Rabbi Binyamin Bar Yefet Yativa Kamar Le Mishemed Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Zera, here's Rabbi Zera up here, and that's continuing that story. And he went up to Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Zera was one of the Nechuta'eh. He was one of the travelers back and forth from Eretz Yisrael and Bavel, and he would share traditions back and forth whenever he went there. And so he found that this other rabbi was sitting before Rabbi Yochanan. So this is what you have to remember. The three great sages of the first generation is Rabbi Yochanan in Eretz Yisrael, and Rav and Shemuel are in Bavel, right? They're contemporaries, and that they are the most important early commentators on the Mishnah, because they're the first generation to receive the Mishnah. And Rabbi Yochanan was saying, he was saying before, the student was saying in front of Rabbi Yochanan, Notnin mardat al gabe hamor b'Shabbat. It says you can put the saddle on an animal on Shabbat. You can apply it. So Maleh Yishar. Rabbi Yochanan says Chazak u'Baruch. I agree. V'chen tirgema Arioch beBavel. And Arioch is a nickname for Shemuel. It means like a lion. And so everybody has nicknames. He has a positive nickname. And so Rabbi Yochanan says, fantastic, that's a good halacha. You're allowed to put the saddlebag on. Now, who's Arioch? Manosh Shemuel. Now, I hope you're thinking the same question that the Gemara is going to bring. You're talking about the saddlebag. We already established, everybody agrees that the only question was, what about the feed bag? But saddlebag, Nami Amara, everybody says you can put the saddlebag on, saddlecloth on. Ella, or rather, this exclamation, they said Chazak Baruch was not about that law, it was about the next law that he continued. And Tolin Tiraskal Shabbat. And you're not allowed to put a feed bag, not allowed, right? That's what the student said in front of Rabbi Yochanan. Yochanan said, Yishar v'chem tidgema arioch bebavel, right? Yashar koach, and that's exactly how Shemuel interpreted it. So now this makes sense because Shemuel is the one that said it's not allowed, like Rabbi Yochanan, against Rav, who said it is allowed. So now we're really ganging up on Rav. Okay. But to go back to the question that the student asked, the student of Rav, and he said, what's the difference between a saddle cloth and the saddle itself, right? Why should one be allowed and one not? We're going back to the Gemara's answering for him. He was quiet, but let's try to figure out what might be a difference. Everybody says the saddle cloth is okay. How about the saddle? Well, that one's different. Technically, if you needed to, you could take off the saddle, even directly. But since you could do it in a simpler way, indirectly, because it's pretty loose, and you just let it walk around and it falls off, that's why we say the saddle, you can't do that way. But it seems from this that, in fact, to put it on would also be okay. So that assumption that we had that it wasn't okay, according in this opinion, probably is. The Papa Amar kan lechamema kan lesanena. Lechamema it la saara. Lesanena let la saara. There's a difference between putting on and putting off. When you put something on, whether the saddle bag or the saddle itself, you're making it warm, and an animal needs warmth. Because otherwise it'll suffer. But if you want to take it off because it's too hot, well, that's not called suffering for an animal. Animals are hot. They don't like being cold, but they don't mind being hot. As people often say, Hamara, and that's a very famous saying, right? Animals, even summer, they are cool. They have ways of cooling down. They don't mind it. They don't need the air conditioning. And so since it's less of a need to take it off, that's why you have to take it off in an indirect way. But really, you could actually put it on. Okay, now we object to this. Metiveh lo yeseh hasus biznav shu'al velo bezaharurit sheben einav. We only need one little section of this, but we're going to go through the whole thing, and we're going to continue analyzing this Tosefta even after we're done with what we need. So let's analyze it closely. A horse cannot go out with a fox's tail. This would be for good luck. You don't want the horse to get damaged. You put a fox's tail on it. They can't go out on Shabbat. Not because it's magical. It could go out during the week, but because it's carrying on Shabbat. It's not a usual thing that would be on it. And not with a red string. The red string, either for magic or maybe for decoration, also not allowed because it's carrying for the animal that you put between its eyes. Lo yaseh zav bekis shelo. Zav is someone who sees a gonorrheal emission for 1 or 2 or 3 days from his member, and he wears a sack to catch the emission, and he needs to see how many days he has this problem. So he cannot walk outside with it because it's not clothing, not protecting. It's just an extra thing. So it's called carrying. That's for a human being. And here's our relevant part that we're going to need, that the goats cannot go out with something covering the udders. Nor can a cow go out with a muzzle around its mouth. I think we have some pictures of these things. By the way, here's the halter that we talked about yesterday, right? Okay. So here you go. Here's a muzzle, so it won't eat grass that doesn't belong to it. Velo seyachim bit ras kalin shebefihem, and bowls with a basket around its mouth. In other words, a feed bag. Lidashut harabim. All these things are not good. And also, the animal cannot go out with shoes, like a horseshoe. This is my favorite. And you can't put an amulet on an animal, even if it's a tried and true tested amulet. right? You do a double-blind study and you find that the amulet works. Even if it works, you cannot put it on the animal. It's still considered carrying on Shabbat. And this is something in one way in which something is considered carrying for an animal, but not for a person, because a person is allowed to wear an amulet outside and it's not considered carrying. Okay, the Tosefta continues. Now all these things are not allowed. An animal can go out with a splint if it breaks its leg. Sorry, the first one is a bandage around a wound, or a splint for a broken bone. The afterbirth still didn't all come out. It's okay, it's part of the animal, it's not considered carrying. And as long as you stop the ring, the bell, like a cowbell, right? They had those back then. As long as you stop it, so it's not making noise on Shabbat, which would be a problem, you can walk around with it, go for a stroll with the cow. All right, so these are the things that are not allowed, and then these are the things that are allowed. But here's the thing that we need. This is the part that we needed, that was directly relevant. It says that they cannot go out with their feed bags. So that can't go out in public, but it could go out in private, which means that you can put it on Shabbat. And this would disagree with Rav, who said you're not allowed to do it. So how is he going to deal with this Tosefta? He says, "My lab begedolim umishum ta'anug." Isn't the case here talking about big animals, and because it's simply pleasurable, it's easier for them, they can sit and eat all day? Lo beketanim mishum sa'ad. That's talking about small calves. Small calves, their necks apparently are not able to bend all the way down to eat the grass, and so it's painful for it. And so because of that, this one is over here in the Mishnah when it says you can't do it, and when that says it's a problem. Sorry, that says it's allowed, but in the Shut HaYachid, it's only be talking about a young calf, and it'd be painful for it not to, and that's why it's allowed. And we can see for that's true, Dumya de Kameya, right? It's in parallel to the Kameya, which is also for healing purposes. So therefore, we derive that all the things in this Mishnah are needed, not just extra pleasure for the animal. All right, so that's how we saved Rav's opinion from the attack of the Tosefta. But now that we quoted this very interesting Tosefta, we can go on with it. Amar Mor, you just said, "Velo Kamiya b'afal pishu mumche, v'ha'anan tenan, velo bekamiya she'eno mumche." So in our Mishnah, it says a person cannot go out on Shabbat with an amulet that's untested. These are like the bad immunity COVID tests, right? They haven't been checked, so they're worthless. So there we have a contradiction. Which one is it? How can we say an animal cannot go out with a checked amulet, but a person could go out with a checked amulet? He just can't go out with an unchecked amulet. No, the truth is that even here it would be the same law if it was an unchecked. Checked or unchecked, the animal can't go out with it either way. What do you mean? You just says it says if it's even if it's checked, why are you putting them all together? When the Tosefta here says an animal cannot go out with a checked amulet, it means one that was checked and works for a human being, but it was not checked for an animal. These are different categories. It can't be sold in the same store. Is there such a thing that it works only for one? Right? This is like the inner workings of magic here. In Adam This is a very important principle, that human beings are subject to the stars, to astrology, and to luck, and therefore amulets work for them. But animals are not under protection of stars and constellations, and therefore amulets do not work for them. Okay, very interesting. When Mishnah later on, Masechet Shabbat is going to speak about En Mazal Israel, that Israel also can get out of all this. But it seems that the rabbis did believe that for human beings there is the basic substratum of inner workings that you can manipulate through these magic amulets. Okay. Now, if that's the case, then why did it say at the end of the Tosefta that this is something where an animal is more chamor than a person? Because it would sound like even a person, if it didn't work, then it would also, you couldn't go out with it. So it sounds like it's actually the same law, both for animals and people. If amulets don't work, you can't go out with them. So no, that line wasn't talking about the animal. It's talking about shoes. Shoes, a person is allowed to wear shoes, and that's okay. But an animal cannot wear shoes outside. That's considered carrying for animals. So in that sense, animals are more stringent than the law is for human beings. All right. Tashema, this is a very interesting little discussion about a discomfort of Asar Balei Chayim. Sachin u'mefarkesin la'adam, ben sachin u'mefarkesin le'behema. We established the principle just now, that for Sar Balei Chayim, you're allowed to do things to help the animal out. Incidentally, in the Damascus document of the Dead Sea Scrolls, it talks about a case where an animal falls down into a pit or a cistern, and you're not allowed to help it out. So you see that for the Dead Sea sect, Sar Balei Chayim did not help, did not trump Shabbat. Although, to be sure, for the Dead Sea Scrolls, even if a human being falls into a cistern, you also have to leave him there, and you don't help him out. So for them, Shabbat is the most important, even above Pikuach Nefesh. Okay, but for the rabbis, they were much more lenient regarding Shabbat to help out certainly human beings, but even animals. Okay, so we said that you can smear oil and scrape off a scab for a person, but not for an animal. You can't do that. My lavdika maka mishum sad. In this, talk about a case where he has a wound and you're helping him heal the wound because it's painful to him. And so why should not be allowed? This goes against the principle we just said. Lo digmar maka mishum ta'anug. No, it's not so that the wound was healed, and this is just for pleasure. That's why it's not allowed to do for an animal, because it's only for its pleasure. It's not in fact suffering. Another similar case, behema shehazad dam. Animal gets a fever. En ma'amidin otah b'mayim b'shvil shetistanen. You can't put it in the water so that to cool it down to lower the fever. And that would seem to be a suffering for the animal, and still you're not allowed. So what's the deal with that? It looks like Sar Balei Chayim is not so important regarding Shabbat. Adam shechazodam amidino to b'mayim b'shvil shetistanen. A person, however, who has a fever, he can go in the water to cool him down. Amar ula gezerah mishum shechikat samanin. No, the reason why we can't put an animal in cool water is because if we cool him off, then we're going to come to make medicine. We're going to crush some things, and we're going to give some Advil to the cow to get rid of his fever. So obvious question. Aren't you worried about people also, that you're going to come to bring his fever down? You're going to take him, if it doesn't work, when you take him to the river, you're going to want to give him crushed Advil for him. So Adam kemekar. Now, for a person, when he's going down to the river, it's not obvious that he's doing this for therapeutic purposes. Maybe he's just having fun. He wants to go for a swim. He wants to cool off. It's not evident that he is sick. And so therefore, this is not considered medication. So since it's not necessarily medication, you won't come to actually give him medication and crush him. How about animals? They can go for a swim too. They might just want to, cool off and splash around, have fun. No, and animals don't usually do that. So therefore, the animal going for a swim, it's obvious that he's doing it for medication purposes. All right, all these are actually a lot of practical halachot regarding taking medication, doing things that might be have to do with medication on Shabbat. If it's anything that you might otherwise do anyway, right, then it's not considered medication and is permitted on Shabbat. And this is the source for that. Okay. Hold on. We're going to start making fences for animals that they don't violate the law. Okay, this is a case here where you're in one tichum and the animal is in another tichum Shabbat. How could this be? Animals follow the tichum of their owners. Wherever their owner is, and the owner, let's say here is, starts Shabbat here. So his city is here. His tichum Shabbat is 2,000 amot around. His animal, no matter where it starts, even if his animal starts over here, can only go 2,000 amot from where the owner is. But the shepherd, maybe he lives on the next village, and the shepherd can only go this far on Shabbat, right? And so this part together, here's where the shepherd and the animal can go together. But let's say the shepherd and the owner's home sleeping, taking a Shabbat nap. But the shepherd is here with the animal, and the animal goes outside his tichum, where a place where the animal's allowed to go, but the shepherd cannot go. So now the shepherd is back here and calls him, come over here. He's allowed to do that. You don't have to worry that that's causing the animal to violate its prohibition, right? In other words, we don't make a gezerah for animals, although you cannot actually physically lead it out of its tichum. You can call it and it goes on its own. Okay, so therefore, see, in general, we don't make a gezerah for animals. When you have this overlapping Venn diagram, that's the case. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar shechikat samanim gufa tana'ehi detanya behema she'achla harshinin lo yirisena bechaser b'shvil shetitrapeh. Rabbi Hoshaya matir. As the truth is that even crushing herbs is itself for an animal is itself a dispute among Tanaim. Animal eats vetch, which is very bad for it, and it's life-threatening constipation. The first opinion says you're allowed to make it run around so that it will loosen its bowels. The first opinion says it's not allowed. Second opinion says it is permitted. And so you see there's a machloket among these Tanaim already, whether one can do medical things for an animal or not, and halacha ke Rabbi Hoshaya. Okay, but since there's two opinions, that would explain above why there was differences of opinion there. The next part of that Tosefta said, Lo yaseh hazav bekis shelo velo izim bekish shebedadehen. Can't wear these pockets under at person's genital or the animal's genitals. There's a braita that says the exact opposite, that goats can go out with a pouch under their udders. Depends. If it's tightly bound, then you can go out because it's not going to fall off. If it's loosely bound, you can't because then it'll fall off and the shepherd will carry it. Rav Yosef Amar, Tana'eh shekalt me'alma. Rav Yosef is a great line. It says, have you forgotten about all the Tanaim in the world? You're analyzing these two and trying to reconcile them as if you have to reconcile every Tanaitic statement. But there were many Tanaim and they had different opinions. And we know that because it's in a Mishnah. This might be why he's especially angry. Everybody's expected to know a Mishnah. Hazim yosot sedurot. Rabbi Yosef omer bechulan chutz min harechelot hakibunot. Rabbi Yehuda omer hazim yosot sedurot leyabesh aval lo lechaler. This is our Mishnah, the one that we started the day with. And that says the she-goats can go with their udders bound, and so it's similar to this case. Rabbi Yosef says, no, none of them are good except for the one that, except for the ewes that have a cover on them. And Rabbi Yehuda says, Yosot Sedurot, depends for what reason. Okay, so therefore, what we can do is we can simply say that these two opinions here, the Tosefta and this Baraita, are following the different opinions here. The one who's Mekel is like Tanakama, and the one who's Mahmir is following Rabbi Yosef here. So there's a similarity between tying up the udders and putting a bag underneath. Or we can say all opinions follow Rabbi Yehuda, and when it says that you are allowed to put a bag underneath, a cover underneath, that's talking about in the case where you would also be allowed to tie it, which is to dry it out. But if it's to catch the milk, and that's why you're putting it, then it's not allowed, because that would be looser. Okay, good. Tanya, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Maaseh be'ezim bet Antochia sheyu dadehen gasin, v'asu lem kisin kedei shelo yisaretu dadehen. Here's a different case where they had very large udders and they would drag on the ground, and so they made pouches for them not to get scratched. And that's a different case altogether, where you're doing it for the benefit of the animal. It will be painful for it otherwise. And then we have one of the most fascinating and memorable stories in all of Shas, happens to be right here. Tanu Rabbanan, Maaseh be'achad shemeta ishto, ve'henicha ben linok. One guy, his wife died and he had a little baby who needed to nurse. And he didn't have enough money to hire a wet nurse. A miracle happened for him, and he was able to nurse the child. Okay, amazing thing. And so, I don't know if there's I can't see here if you're saying something intelligent.
Narab was asking me if it's made up. She was in the background.
That's a good question. I don't know. It sounds like a miracle story. Could it be that the person had some kind of genetic, strange thing that was able to? I don't know. The infants, even boys, when they're newborn boys do have a little bit of liquid that comes out of their breasts. So there is some tissue in there that's the same. So I don't know.
How about about hermaphrodites? Is that?
Yeah, or maybe this person had some kind of hormonal imbalance, and so I don't know. I would say it might be in the realm of possibility. I don't know if it'll be quite enough milk, but even happened a little. The story is here. Okay, so we would say, wow, how amazing this guy is. But look at the reaction. Amar Rav Yosef, what an amazing high-level person this is on. That he had a miracle done for him. How terrible is this for this person that he was so poor, he couldn't even get, have a little money to hire a wet nurse, and he had to have a miracle done for him. And look what kind of miracle it is. He has to be abnormal. And, would anybody want this miracle to happen to them? Wouldn't you rather just, be able to get some formula from the store and eat it, right? Thanks, I don't need that miracle. I'll do just fine through natural means. So Hazit, this guy, that he needed such a miracle. All right, that's very interesting. Amar Rav Yehuda, right, look how difficult it is for people to make a living, that this person needed a miracle just to get by. So, any other case when people are able to make a living, that's a miracle in itself. Sometimes miracles happen, but you never have a miracle that all of a sudden there's food on the table. Right? You'll have a miracle that someone gets money, they get a deal, and then they could use money and go buy. But even miracles don't rise up to this level that get food right there ready. Okay, they didn't have Uber Eats back then. That's why they said that. Tanu Rabbanan, almost done. Maaseh b'adam echad shenasa isha gidemet v'lo ikir ba ad yom mota. Guy married a one-armed woman and didn't realize till the day that she died, right? How modest she must have been. She's always covering her arms, and he never noticed. That's typical. Of course, she's going to cover her arms, especially if you don't have one. But look how he never looked at her and never noticed. So he's the one that should be praised for his modesty.
So this is quite amazing because I'm going to imagine that it wasn't even his wife who died, and like, how many arms did she have? Not sure.
Right? Can you
You
identify?
identify the body.
Right. Good. Okay. It reminds me of stories of rabbis that never looked at themselves in the mirror, and then one time they see and say, "Oh, what is that?" Okay. Zecharim yosin lebubin. So now this is the ones the males that go out covered so that they won't mate with the females. Mai levuvin amadavona turte. All right. Tied. My mashma dahai levubin lishna dekarobehu dichtiv lebabtini achoti chala. Lebabtini means like go come together, and that's why it means coming, bringing together, covering, tying up together. That's how it means. Ula amar or shekoshrin lahem keneged libam kedei shelo yipedu alehen ze'evim. So this is no, levuvin doesn't mean that. It means that you put some skin, leather on their hearts so that wolves won't come and attack right there. It'll be protected, a little bit of armor for the animal in front of wolves. So ze'evim, azecharim nafle, nekebot nafle. But and then why would you say that this law applies? It can or can't walk outside with that. Or it only apply to males. How about females? Wouldn't you also want to protect them from wolves? The males walk in front, and they're the most likely to get attacked by wolves. And what, the wolves only attack from the front? We know the wolves also attack from behind. So the females are behind, they should also need it. So that's not right. Well, the males are fat, and that's why the wolves attack them, because they have more meat. Well, are there no fat females use? So there are also, they should also be protected. You think wolves are so careful? They check out the weight of the animal they're going to attack, right? They just go, they attack anyone. The males walk around with their nose up high, and they look like they're attacking, and so the wolves are more scared of them, and therefore the wolves attack them first. Okay. All right, we'll have to watch some Nature Channel and see if this is accurate. Rav Nachman, but there's something going on here. I think it's strange that we have a couple of unusual stories about men and their wives, and then this kind of unusual thing here about male and female animals. All right, we need some more literary analysis of this to see what that is. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak amar, or shekoshrin lahem tachat zacharutan kedei shelo ya'alu al hanekevot. Okay, which is what we said before. And you can tell that from the next line, the females go out covered so that they won't be, with their tail lifted. So when it is mating time, you lift up their tails so they will be able to mate more easily. So each one's different cases. Either you do not want them to mate, or you do want them to mate, so you do those different things. Last line. How do you know that this word shechuzot means that you expose? It's private. And this shit zona, if you mix the letters around, it sounds something like shechuzot. So it's a folk etymology for this. Amen ve'amen. All right.
Lovely.
Quick question.